humans. In Jared Diamond's book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, he explores the idea of how these three different vectors helped one country have superiority and the ability to conquer another society. Guns through the technology, the superior technology of Europe versus the other cultures that they encountered. Germs, the impact that it had in spreading disease, and steel, the industrialization, the machinery, the metallurgy of the culture, and how that became an advantage, and how all three of these combined. They gave Europe a really strong lever as they encountered other countries and as they expanded into other lands and other territories in the world. But I think he's got it wrong. He has them kind of evenly weighted: guns, germs, steel. It should be guns, germs, steel. Germs is what we're going to talk about. But let's zoom out a little bit first and let's talk about hard-ons. Talk about a hard-on. Right now, the world is a hard-on for punishing white men. And white men are in the doghouse. Boy, and when you get in the doghouse, everything that you do and say is seen through the lens, right, of your accuser. When I've been in the doghouse, I couldn't say or do a thing without, no matter how benign it was interpreted through this motherfucker lens. And white men are now in the motherfucker lens, and everything they have done is scrutinized through the motherfucker lens, and it just kind of just continues to support this argument. We've been telling you, everywhere they go, every time they encounter a new population, they kill people, they take over their land, and they claim ownership of it. That's white people that's white man 101. Right? And let's show the evidence. Here we have the Aztecs and the Incas and the people from the Maya and the Native Americans, and everywhere they go, in the Caribbean, everywhere they go. Africa, they kill people, they take their land, they take their stuff, and they claim ownership, and they think they're just like the baddest motherfuckers that ever were. And we'll show them, and we got to bring them down a notch, and we got to make them pay, right? Well, white men, I got you back. Because I think a lot, at least for today, and for the next few minutes, I think we're going to turn upside down a very big part of this narrative about the evil, nefarious nature of white men and how they have, just plundered the world. So hang on and get your mind ready to get twisted. In the grand tapestry and the grand parade of human history, we like to frame ourselves and our people, our tribe, our culture, as the victors, as the heroes. And for every hero, there has to be a heel. Okay, for every good guy, there needs to be a bad guy. Cultures like to frame themselves as the good guys. We're the noble ones. We're on the side of truth. And our enemies are on the side of evil. They're the dark and malevolent forces in the world. This exists at every single strata of human existence. It is in our nature to demonize the other and to heroicize ourselves. Is that a word? So the Europeans have a heroic story. Our world conquest and domination was a natural and inevitable conclusion of our intelligence, our strength, our technical superiority, our industriousness, our ambition, the divine providence of the Creator, right? It had to be. It's good to be white. Look at all we've done. We put our eyes on it. We set our sails for the new world, and we came and we kicked ass, right? Yeah. Not really. Not really. Now, on the other hand, we have the other side of the pancake of that story is if that's the oppressor victor narrative, then there is the oppressed and the conquered narrative. These white people, they came, they killed us all, they took all our shit, they took our land, they implemented their ways, and ever since they've been here and we've been here, and ne'er the two have met nor we fear will ever meet. They came in and their nature, their predatory nature, and they did what predators do. They killed everybody and took advantage of us. And that's not true either. There are truths in both sides of that. But I want to prepare you that the biggest truth was an invisible truth. It was not, as the Europeans said, all by their vision and the blessings and divine providence of God and their hard work and their technology and all those other things that they, have take great pride in. Nor was it completely like the conquered peoples, the native peoples said. No, the white men did not come in and just slaughter people with like Gatling gun efficiency, mowing down people with guns and cannons and swords and rifles. That happened. But you think it happened like this, and it really happened like that. What really happened will shock you because it is never told. It is mentioned, but we never dig deeper into this thing that I think at the end of this you'll go, that's not what we were told and not what I understood. So in the grand history of human conquest, we like to frame ourselves as the heroes and the victors, or as the conquered and as the oppressed. And both measure, each side of the equation has their version of truth and of history. Okay? We paint these very vivid pictures. Literally, we have huge murals in museums full of heroic paintings of conquests that represent the ideals of our culture and our courage and our vision and our advancement. But what never gets shown in any of those paintings is the truth, the invisible truth, the far more complex truth, that much of that grand conquest happened invisibly and on a microscopic level. It was silent and invisible and completely oblivious to its earth-shattering power. So this age of European conquest, where the Europeans set sail with the purse of the queen or the king to conquer and explore new lands, to open new trading routes and to find new resources and to explore new territories that could expand the empire. Yeah? And these are grand and gallant tales of these courageous explorers. And yes, indeed, they did carry weaponry and the most advanced artifacts of their time and of their culture. But the most insidious thing that they carried were these invisible cargoes, these microorganisms, the disease that they carried and had no idea about. At the time in Europe, the microscope was just beginning to be invented, and we were just beginning to see what you can see through this lens, this magnified view of what's swimming around in a droplet of water. Well, we began to see that there's stuff swimming around in there, but we hadn't really assembled a framework, a disease model that explained that, yeah, in fact, those little things, some of them can make you sick. These microbes, these bacteria, these organisms, if you ingest them, they can make you sick. And worse, they can kill you. And in fact, the Europeans had a long experience, a lot of experience with the destruction. Without even knowing what the real cause was, they had a long experience with the destruction of these microbes. They had gone through plagues themselves. Consequently, they had built some immunity. But the people that they encountered on the shores of the new Americas, they didn't share that immunity. They were all utterly vulnerable to smallpox and cholera, bubonic plague, many of the other kinds of diseases that the Europeans had encountered multiple times and had to build immunity in order for their culture to survive. The Native Americans, the Indians in the Americas, with far less, they were a monoculture. They didn't interact. Their trading was not as widespread. They were much more isolated relative to the Europeans, and so they didn't encounter as many different pathogens, and consequently their immune systems just weren't as stout as the Europeans were. It's almost darkly comical. The conquistadors arrived loaded for bear with the guns and the steel and all the machines and all their technology, and they almost didn't have to use it. The disease did the job for them. It was like the disease parted the Red Sea. When they first encountered the Aztecs, it is theorized, were between 15 and 30 million people strong. But within a few years, of encountering the Europeans. From 15 to 30 million, they were down to less than 3 million men. When Cortez arrived, he only had 600 men. And this disease was the one. That was his biggest weapon, and he didn't even know he had it. So when you decimate a population by 90%, you destroy its structure, you destroy the culture, the hierarchy, the best practices, the holders of the knowledge, the shaman, the medicine men. All of this cultural knowledge died with these populations as well, decimated them. And two perceptions began to quickly emerge on the side of the Europeans. I guess God's on our side. We show up, and within short manner of time, they're gone. They just collapse. The population collapses. I mean, we were planning on having to fight with these guys for a decade, years, and we barely had to fire around, relatively speaking. 90% of the work was done through sickness. They didn't know that, though. At that time, they must have thought this must have been divine providence. They had to believe that each time in the lore of different expedition parties, they'd probably gathered and heard other stories. Yeah, we showed up in short order. Most of them are dead. That's kind of like us. We showed up and most of them were dead. Must be God, must be on our side. We got some voodoo. We got the mojo, man. We kill people without even trying. No, you didn't kill anybody. The microbes killed them. Their vulnerability, their lack of immune system is what killed them. 95%, up to 95%. Think about that. And think about how that disrupts the narrative where you have been told that white people came in and did all this conquering. And you think about, okay, they took the population from 30 million to 3 million. God, they killed 27 million and without thinking about disease, without thinking about smallpox and cholera and all these other really devastating diseases. You don't think about that. You're thinking, man, that's a lot of sword work. That's a lot of rifles. That's a lot of cannons. That's a lot of battles, right? And you're thinking, man, there's just like lots of, thousands of Spaniards fighting thousands and thousands of Aztecs? No. Cortez arrived in 1519 with 600 men on his boat. 600 men against a population of up to 30 million. The disease did the heavy lifting. It killed 95% of that population. It made conquering these people light work. It could have been the other way around. Had the Europeans not had immunity to the Native Americans' diseases, they could have gotten off the boats and dropped like flies. And today in 2024, the natives would be saying, yeah, man, I remember hearing about those white people that showed up, 400 or 500 years ago. I don't know, man, they were pretty weak stock. Sickly bunch. They died within a couple of months. That could have been the story. The white people could have died instead. They could have lacked immunity that the natives had. Quirk of fate. It just happened. It just happened. And it happens like that. History is often like that. Could have gone this way. Could have gone that way. It went that way. And no one made a intentional decision. No one said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I want to gather the sickest men, the most virulent men from Europe, from Spain, and I want to load them all on a boat, and we're going to go over there and we're going to shake hands and hug and kiss and sneeze on as many Aztecs as we can, and we're going to just mow them down with our smallpox. They had no idea. They had no idea what was going on, but they could see that these people were just dying. So I think that they thought God is on our side. I think that this experience, repeated over time after time after time, European encounters with the natives in another land, this pattern is repeated. People get sick, they die, they make taking over and implementing the Western model, the Western colonization. They make easy work of it. And then they do it here and it just repeats again and again. They show up, people get sick, they die, makes it easy work. Show up, lather, rinse, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. They must have thought God was on their side. They just kept on working out that way. They had the hot hand. They just kept on going with it. And they began to think this was providentially inspired, manifest destiny. I think this kind of played into it. Now, on the other side of the equation, you got to think that the natives were like, what in the hell do these people have? They've got magic, man, black magic. As soon as you see them, you start dropping like flies. At the limbic level, I think this is the perception that the natives had of the white people. So let's just recap. Yes, guns were important. The technology, the technological superiority that the Europeans had with their guns was clear and evident. And among the remaining populations, after they'd taken the population from here down to here with this biological warfare that they didn't know, they were the original biological warfare OGs. They didn't even know it. The most devastating weapon in their arsenal was something they didn't even know they had. So, yes, they had, military superiority. Yes, they had, a certain kind of mental framework, partly based on the evolution that I described in Winter is Coming, in that theory. They possessed, technology in terms of their shipbuilding, ships that were built to cross the ocean in a few weeks, with speed and efficiency and navigational technology that allowed them to circumnavigate the globe to some greater or lesser extent. Yeah. So all credit to the actual technology and the actual advantage that they had on paper. I'm just saying that in reality, little of that really came to bear. It came to bear with the proportionality that we tend to tell in these historic narratives where, we just had a better mousetrap and we came in and, just used that better mousetrap to clean this situation up. But no, you really got lucky. Got really, really lucky. You had no idea that it was going to happen that way. Could have easily been the other way around. So the next time someone waxes poetic about the superiority of Western military and Western culture and all that, just remind them of this microbial massacre. Yeah, because in the grand conquest, it wasn't the biggest guns or the craftiest strategy. It was this little invisible microbe that was a devastating biological arsenal. It's a humbling reminder that in the grand scheme of things, even the mightiest empires, like the U.S. one day, will be toppled by something unseen.